Hey everyone, this is Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. Happy Monday, everybody. Today we're going to take a look at the astrology for the week ahead. That is today, May 26th through June 1st. This week is a pretty quiet week in terms of the transits that are coming through. We have a new moon today that we're going to take a look at. We'll be spending a little bit more time on that today since it's happening today, but only a few transits after that in the week to come. However, Thursday and Friday, we will be previewing the astrology of June and doing horoscopes for June. So that will keep the content a little bit more full for the week, which is nice. We have a number of transits outside of the new moon in Gemini. Most of them are Mercury are happening around Mercury's movements. Mercury will sextile Neptune at the same time that it's making its new moon today. We have Mercury trining Pluto and then Mercury Cazimi this week. So we're going to be looking at those today. I also am very excited to share a little new segment that I've made about incorporating altar practice into your relationship with astrology. So if that's interesting to you, I'll have a little segment on that I'll be weaving in today. I've been working on it for a while. I'm really excited to start sharing this. It'll probably be something that I do at the beginning of every week. So we'll look forward to that today as well. Well, before we get into it, remember to like and subscribe. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you watch regularly and aren't yet subscribed, it takes 2 seconds to hit the subscribe button, and it really helps us a lot. We appreciate it. You can find transcripts of any of these daily talks on my website, which is nightlightastrology.com. A few events to turn you on to that are coming up at Nightlight. Go to the events page, click on in-person events. You'll see that we're having a summer solstice gathering in Minneapolis on June 21st at the Grapevine Collective. Everything you need to know is there. Just click RSVP so that we know you're coming. It's free to attend. We just want to make sure we have enough tea and cookies for everybody. If you go to the speaker series, you'll see that June 7th, 8th, and 15th, we have 3 new speakers in our seasonal speaker series. Great, interesting topics in astrology to come learn with us. They are free to attend. You just have to register to get the link. And if you can't attend, you still register to get the replay so you can watch it on your own time. Finally, if you go to live talks, you'll see that my upcoming webinar for June on the 19th is taking place. You can register for that. It is called Uranus in Gemini, trine Pluto in Aquarius when new objects appear in the sky. We're going to be talking about that very special trine that is going to be forming between Uranus and Pluto in air signs. Real in-depth dive into that aspect, which is very, historically speaking, rare. So then in July, I'll be doing a talk on the 9th house. Now, of course, you know, in the meantime, we are in enrollment season for the first year course. Horary starts in June. Year 2 starts in June. We recommend if you're new to Nightlight, you start with year 1. That begins on June 22nd. Enrollment is open at the bottom of the page there. You'll find the enrollment options, and everything that you need to know about the course is located on that page as well. Check out the need-based tuition option if you want to take the course but need a little help to make it happen. We understand people are in different financial realities, and we want to make sure that the class is accessible. So if you need to pick within our sliding scale that we offer, you can do that. If you need some help, just tell us your situation, click the Apply Now button, and you'll be all set. Otherwise, at the end of today's video, there is an informational video about the program where I go in depth for about 10, 12 minutes, something like that, into the details of the program. So you can stick around to see that later. All right, on that note, let's turn our attention to the real-time clock where we'll take a look at this week's astrology. So the big news for today, May 26th, Monday, is that the new moon is forming. So we're going to see that forming depending on your time zone late tonight, Monday, May 26th. I have it coming in around 10 p.m. Central Time, which makes it about 11 p.m. Eastern, and that would, what would that be, 10 with 8 p.m. Pacific, something like that. So it's this evening at any rate. You'll see that new moon coming in. And at the same time today, a little earlier in the day, we're going to see a forming sextile between the ruler of the new moon, Mercury, and Neptune in Aries. So there's a lot of busy contacts from Mercury this week. Mercury is the host of the new moon in Gemini, its own home sign. It is combust the sun right now, but protected by virtue of being in its own sign, or what's called its own chariot. And it is connecting with Neptune in a harmonious sextile. It's also just separating from a sextile with Saturn, who is freshly in the sign of Aries over this past weekend. So that's a very unique signature for the ruler of a new moon. Combust but protected from combustion, ruling the new moon and sextiling Saturn and Neptune, and freshly having entered Aries. This new moon cycle will really bring about many of the earliest signs of these two planets in Aries. This is the first moon cycle we've had that's been truly configured to those planets, both now in the sign of Aries. So we're really going to get a feel for Saturn, Neptune, and Aries this cycle. Although what I like about it is that the opening of the cycle is pretty harmonious. Anyway, so that's today, May 26th, new moon in Gemini. Today, Mercury sextile Neptune is the host of the new moon. We're going to circle back around to talk about that after I go through the other transits of the week. That'll really be our focus here at the end. Now, the next transit that's coming through is, surprise, surprise, another Mercury transit. If we go forward to one day from now, tomorrow, we're going to see that Mercury in Gemini is now hitting a trine to Pluto. So the Mercury trine to Pluto follows on the Sun's trine to Pluto that we experienced last weekend. Last weekend, as the Sun was trining Pluto, we also saw the entrance of Saturn into Aries. So this was one of the transits that we focused on last weekend. Now we're seeing the same transit effectively with a different planet at the same degree making the trine to Pluto. That's Mercury, host of the new moon, while the moon is just separating from the sun in the sign of Gemini. We get the host of that new moon trining Pluto. So again, it's a week where we have a very mercurial cycle ahead of us. And that mercurial cycle features a bunch of harmonious aspects to the outer planets early in the cycle, which is really going to give us a feel for the seeding point of the cycle being rooted in these aspects. Mercury's trine to Pluto at the outset of a cycle suggests to me that there is, thankfully, a smooth, with the sextile to Neptune, the sextile to Saturn, then the trine to Pluto. There's a kind of smooth but deep shift happening for Mercury. When I see that, I think about things that are Mercury ruled, potentially going through the kinds of shifts indicated by contacts with the outer planets. So for me, when I think of Mercury in an air sign, I think of ideas, intellect, learning, communication, the rational or intellectual qualities in general, sometimes things like technology or commerce or business, organizational techniques or strategies, concepts, the level at which things exist in the realm of thought and idea or planning, mapping, and strategizing can experience some significant shifts. The way that we're thinking about something, the way we are perceiving something, especially if you're learning or studying a subject, transits like these in a week like this with a new moon in Mercury sign can really be about the cultivation of new forms of learning or understanding of something. Even if you've been studying it for a long time, like myself as an astrologer, I've been practicing doing this for a long time, but it could very well be a week in which I'm learning things that I'd never thought of before, or I'm approaching something I've done 10 times before, but I'm finding a very new way to do it. The implementation of new thoughts, new ideas, new insights, where there's a level of enthusiasm present, that could be a really good thing for this new moon cycle. All of these themes and topics seem to have a lot of positive momentum behind them. The early trine from Mercury to Pluto, which is taking place tomorrow, to me suggests that there's some deeper level of understanding that we're accessing. When Mercury trines Pluto with in an air sign, I'm thinking about the mobilization of intellectual or technological resources. The reason I say mobilization of resources is that Mercury's trine to Pluto can be very empowering. Trines are thought of as providing strong forms of resources or momentum, or sort of they make positive contributions to something. Pluto means riches and has a strong association with things that empower. But they often empower as we have to come into contact with the life. Let me put it this way: the life-giving power of Pluto is also at times eruptive and has this transformative force that can feel not entirely stable. And in squares or oppositions will often erupt in ways that are actually destructive, even though there may be a simultaneous way in which the contact with Pluto through square or opposition provides a fertile, life-giving, transformative force. But it tends to come with a destructiveness. Trines and sextiles to Pluto are not usually as destructive, and the eruption of that life-giving, fertile, deep, empowering energy from Pluto is usually accessed in ways that are slightly like easier, less problematic, less destructive. So we have the depth and intensity of Pluto empowering Mercury, both in air signs. I see that as new ideas, new forms of like new conceptual frameworks, new understanding, new learning, new ways of communicating, new uses of technology, new plans or strategies. But then I would say simultaneously, the resourcing that we'll encounter, it has a kind of transformative force behind it that's going to be a little edgy and intense, but nonetheless, it should feel constructive. So you see that coming right off from the new moon tomorrow. Then on the 30th, Mercury will be cazimi. Now we have to remember that typically when Mercury is this close to the sun, we're dealing with a Mercury that's debilitated because it's getting burnt up. But the interesting thing with this transit is that the combustion, or the cazimi, and hence the combustion, is happening in the sign of Mercury's domicile. So when we put that all together, we're looking at, this is early morning, May 30th, just after midnight, about 1 in the morning, Friday, May 30th, that the two planets are at the exact same minutes of the same degree, like that. If you take it forward throughout the day on Friday, May 30th, the two planets will remain at the same degree all the way up until about 10 in the morning. So you probably will start feeling this Thursday, the 29th, into the 30th. And then if you extend it just a little bit, you get them almost 2 degrees away by the end of the day on Friday, or you're getting them on two separate degrees apart. Sun will change over to the 10th degree, but the point is that it's a very brief window where the cazimi is taking place. Nonetheless, a cazimi with Mercury in its chariot is, you could say, a moment of great empowerment for a Mercury that's already strong by sign. When I look at something like this, I think to myself of having the effective intellectual resources, the words, the ideas, the thoughts, the plans, or the cleverness to deal with something, a problem, or to start something. We're coming right off a new moon, so the impetus to start new things is with us this week. And so here's a pretty well-resourced Mercury being empowered at the heart of the sun to speak, communicate, or conceptualize, or even to invent. Mercury is the planet that's associated with inventiveness. Are you inventing because of a block and you have to come up with a solution? Are you inventing something brand new as a part of your business or your personal life? Or is a light bulb moment occurring where you just have greater understanding of something internally in your own psychology, or of something external that you're studying, a subject? You know, again, like I would say, a Mercury cazimi coming off a new moon in Gemini with the trines to Pluto. This is a week where I expect to feel like I've made progress with something, at least on the level of my understanding, or the level at which thought is occurring consciously for me. I think that the Mercury cazimi moment is also a moment where we may feel empowered to speak something or say something, or we may receive a powerful form of communication, an unexpected piece of news or information that comes to us that provides us with a new starting point somehow. Now, that could be within a process that's already existing somewhere. So the best thing to do is to look at the whole sign house of Gemini in your birth chart, get a feel for the topics that are likely connected to all of this as we're speaking about it. Let's circle back around now to the new moon in Gemini that we are with today. So you can see it's a very mercurial week. I hope I've made that pretty clear. But let's also talk about some of the other things that are happening in the sky, which, and the thing that comes to my mind right away is the fact that we have Jupiter culminating in the sign of Gemini. This is a moon cycle that brings closure and resolution to Jupiter's full year that it spent in the sign of Gemini. And so I would really look at this within the whole sign house of Gemini, and I would like kind of ask yourself the question, what have I learned? In what way has my sense of life purpose, direction, what wisdom have I gained, or in what ways have life direction and purpose been clarified with respect to the topics of this whole sign house? For example, if you have it in the 10th house, then maybe it has something to do with the direction of that your business has been going in, that the direction of things in the workplace or related to your vocation or your skills as a professional. You know, if you have it in the 5th house, maybe it's been a creative process. So apply this new moon to the house, the whole sign house of Gemini in your chart, and then ask yourself, what are the lessons that am now integrating, and that in a sense are coming full circle after a whole year of Jupiter being in Gemini in that house? That to me is, you know, like one of the first things I would recommend journaling about this week to start the week if you keep an astrological journal. Now, I did for years, and I couldn't recommend it more highly. At this point in my life, astrology is such a daily part of my life because of my profession that I'm actively reflecting on these things so often that I find the journaling sort of redundant, to be honest. But and that might be you too. But if you are someone who's trying to develop deeper contact with the language and the arcs and the cycles, then journal and ask yourself, you know, since last June, given the topics of this house, what have I learned? Jupiter is a planet that has so much to say about direction and purpose. Direction and purpose isn't singular. There are many directions and many purposes that we live in a life. And the easiest way to get a sense of what this season of learning and refining of wisdom and understanding, direction and purpose has been about with respect to Jupiter is, again, to look at that whole sign house and its topics. Okay, so not to just like beat a dead horse here, I'm just like saying the same thing over and over, but the new moon here is bringing Jupiter to its close. So if we look forward, you're going to see that Jupiter enters Cancer on June 9th, and that is at the time of the full moon. Is it any surprise that the full moon will be happening in Jupiter's sign opposite the sun in Gemini, as Jupiter has finally left Gemini and entered its exaltation in Cancer? The full moon is speaking directly to Jupiter's transformation this cycle. So again, that's why I suggest really meditating on what's been learned through the transit of Jupiter in Gemini. We are going to be doing some horoscopes for sure on Jupiter's entrance into Cancer. That will be a part of the horoscopes for June that we look at the end of this week with Dana and Alex. And then we'll be breaking down all the major transits of June with Whitney and Alexandra as well. What I'm going to be doing is between now and Wednesday, we're also going to be reflecting on Jupiter's time in Gemini, refreshing on that cycle. And I'll provide you with some horoscopes for Jupiter in Gemini through all 12 signs, so that if you need a little extra help with the process I'm suggesting, you have that. I think we're going to do it. It's either going to be tomorrow or Wednesday. So stay tuned for that. Otherwise, what else can we say about a new moon in Gemini? This new moon in Gemini is picking up a sextile from Saturn and Neptune in Aries. And so I would say that a meditation on boundaries and the dissolution of boundaries that we've created through a more flexible approach mentally, intellectually, and almost ideologically could be a huge feature of this moon cycle. And I say that because this is a moon cycle where the hallmark of Gemini is flexibility of thought, playing with the spectrum of light and dark, seeing a lot of gray rather than just black and white, or being able to move and open ourselves fluidly to the play of light and dark as metaphysical opposites that exist in everything. That's really Hermes Mercury's talent. And so a moon cycle like this in Gemini with Jupiter, planet of wisdom culminating in the sign of Gemini, might have a lot to do with dualities and being able to see the opposite, being able to flexibly open ourselves to consider something that's very different from the way we regard ourselves, or the way we believe, or the path we take, or the approach we believe in. A flexibility of mind is a great tool to have for all of us. That doesn't mean we have to be without belief. It doesn't mean we're amoral. It doesn't mean we're complete relativists or whatever, but anyone who has a lot of absolute thinking without a nice complement of relative thinking is not operating in the way that Hermes would like us to operate. We'll just put it that way, right? So the more rigid we tend to be in our thought without an accompanying flexibility, the more problematic things become for us in the way that our mind participates in the creation of a life story. It's not that you can't have firm convictions and hold to a certain way of absolute thinking about certain things, morally, ethically, ideologically, aesthetically, relationally. You're going to have principles that you stand on that bring the mind to rest because they're firm and they anchor us. At the same time, we always want to be able to approach each unique situation with an exceptional way of thinking. It's like, well, what's the unique thing that's needed in this context, in this unique moment? Does my principle work here, or does there need to be a little bit of openness or compromise with respect to how I'm navigating things in this instance? That is what Mercury is always trying to teach us, which is why, by the way, Hermes, as the ruler of astrology, is always trying to teach us the same thing as astrologers. What you'll find, for example, throughout all of my programs is here are these classical ancient rules for delineation. And if you start thinking about them as objective rules in some kind of empirical objective system, you're going to get lost because this is divination. And the process of divination requires that each unique situation utilizes different tools at different times for different kinds of context. And the way we use tools, if not taken in context, really isn't doing the work of Hermes. So Hermes, as the teacher of astrology, wants us to have rules, principles. There's a kind of astrologia or like a logos of astrology that's fundamental. But then application of that is very relative, very fluid, very intuitive, very artful. This is the kind of way that Hermes teaches. Now, other planets have different ways of teaching. Maybe Hermes isn't your favorite, but these are the kinds of lessons that are likely in front of us right now with the new moon in Gemini. Now, the sextile at the opening to Saturn and Neptune. Again, Saturn and Neptune bring together this sense of boundaries and dualities and dissolution and unity and oneness into a mix. And so I would look at a cycle like this with a sextile, the Saturn and Neptune in Aries, as asking us to consider if there's inflexibility in our thinking, then to get more flexible and fluid and open and let things move across boundaries more fluidly. On the other hand, if we tend to be someone who is, let's say, overly fluid and open and uncommitted, then this might be a transit that suggests that the instantiation of new boundaries, new discipline, a kind of seriousnse that is rooted in principles that establish some kind of groundedness in our mind or our thinking or the level of our principles take place. So it could go in either direction. And I think what's important is to just be open to the direction that's presenting itself for each of us personally. So that's all I'm going to say about that. I hope that it's useful. Again, probably we have horoscopes at the end of the week for June. We have an overview for June later in the week. So the next 2 days, what I'll be doing is unpacking the culmination of Jupiter, and then I might say a little bit more about the cazimi of Mercury. Anyhow, now I'm very excited to share with you a couple of things. One is that for a long time, several years now, I've been in a process personally that many of you, I've been very open about this in the past, but I was a part of a bhakti yoga community and had taken a name through initiation and then decided that it wasn't quite the right path for me. And I have talked about that at length in other videos, so I won't go back into it. I took so much away from that tradition and those practices, and obviously spirituality is a huge part of my life still, but it was just kind of not the exact right container for me, so to speak. So I moved on to other things. I used to have something called Bhakti Wednesdays. Bhakti Wednesdays were a way of me bringing a little bit more of the overtly spiritual side of my life and practice as an astrologer into the way that I convey content. And since then, I've been very slow to go back to anything like that, just because I've needed to think and process what that part of my life looks like in terms of how I want to convey or share it publicly. A lot of reflection needed on that after, the kind of mode in which I last did it publicly. But it's always been something that's on my mind. As you guys know who watch my channel, I'm someone who spirituality is like, to me, I see astrology as a spiritual practice. Um, it accompanies other practices in my life that have still existed since the time I left the Bhakti Yoga community. For example, I have spent a lot of time working on physical health. There's something that was very neglected for me for a long time. And that physical care of my body and well-being, mentally, emotionally, through exercise and so forth, and healthier living and eating and so on, has been a huge part of my practice, but not something I've outside of just kind of sharing a little bit of, excitement of my progress or whatever. I've not been like sharing it as a part of the content or anything like that. I just would be weird. But what came to me in the past year was the major practice that's still a part of my life in terms of my sort of daily spiritual life is silence. So I started, after leaving the Bhakti Yoga community, I started going to Quaker services here in the Twin Cities. Those of you who don't know the Quaker background, to put it simply, it has a kind of a Christian background to it, but you walk into a Quaker service, you sit down and you sit in seated silence in a group of people for about an hour. That's it. That's it. Some people maybe move to share an insight or a thought that comes up during the meditation, but otherwise it's just sharing in quiet with everyone else. And the basic belief behind it is that just sitting quietly, we start to connect and commune with the divine. It was so appealing to me because there was no doctrine or dogma. It was just walk in, sit down, share in silence with other souls, and be on your way. And for me, that has been really meaningful. Now, I have continued that practice, although making it regularly to the Quaker services has proved somewhat difficult because of my schedule. But sitting in silence has been a big deal for me. So in the weeks ahead, there will be an announcement on, probably right now, it's looking like Sunday mornings. I'll be holding space for anyone from the channel who wants to join me online and virtually for a period of sitting in silence. And I want to offer this because I want there to be a way for people who connect to astrology spiritually, but are looking for, maybe basic, simple spiritual practices that can enhance your journey with astrology. And so this will be just a time to sit quietly in community. And then afterward, there will be a brief time of being able to share any reflections or insights that came up for us while we're sitting together in silence. That will be something that I'll be hosting offline through like a Zoom, and it'll be free, for anyone who wants to attend. So more on that soon. In the meantime, the other thing that I'm bringing in, which I'll be incorporating into content online that you'll see every week, will be a segment that I'm calling What's on the Altar this week. So we have an altar downstairs, but I decided to build one here in the office. And so slowly over the past few months, I've been gathering items that are sacred to me to put onto the altar, with no particular religion or dogma or doctrine behind any of it, other than things that have really spoken to me and helped me connect with divinity, I guess I'd say. And what I want to do is just give you some sense of, like, this is what my altar looks like, and here's what I'm offering this week. And every week I'm going to be offering something new, and it can serve as a template for you to have your own altar practice. I'll give you a sense of why I'm putting something that I am on the altar as an offering, and kind of the idea behind it. And then you can either use that same thing in your altar practice, or you can use it as inspiration to do something else if you have an altar. And if you don't, that's not a big deal to me at all. This might be just a brief moment for you to also connect with what's being offered, and just even holding it in your own mind, holding it in the inner space could be valuable as well. I do highly recommend people who are interested in astrology have a home altar. An altar can be filled with meaningful objects. It could be filled with, well, before I get going, let me show you my home altar. All right, so this is my home altar, and the objects that are on the altar right now are not complete. There's a few things that I've ordered that are still coming. A Krishna Radha set of deities from India that's still coming, some other crystals and things like that. But let me tell you a little bit about what you're seeing on the altar here. I'll just mention a few things. You can see Eros and Psyche over there, one of my favorite Greek myths that is really all about it's sort of the Greek equivalent to me of the Krishna Radha duality in India. I have some Christian iconography, Jesus, Mary, a cross, and Saint Francis, all who have had significant impacts on my life story and journey. You can see Aphrodite's up there, Krishna and Radha are up there. Lord Chaitanya from the Bhakti tradition is there. I have a bear because my parents gave me a spirit animal when I was born. They just picked one symbolically. It was a bear. So bears have always been meaningful to me. I have over on the far right, you can kind of see a plant, the Buddha's feet. There's a skull that I have there for a reminder of the sacredness of death. I believe that's pyrite, if I remember the type of gem that skull is made of. You can see Lao Tzu sort of there in the corner, representing my very deep love and affection for Taoist philosophy and the I Ching. You've got the Ramayana characters sitting over here on the left. There's some copper from a mine in Michigan. There's some other crystals there. So anyway, there's a little piece of ayahuasca in front of Krishna and Radha at the front there. There's praying hands. So all of these things have meaning to me. I think I've got labradorite over there in the corner. Anyway, all of these are just meaningful to me. By no means do they have to be meaningful to you, or do they have to represent what you would put on your altar. In fact, I know that for some people, some of the Christian iconography would not be included, and that's okay. I grew up a preacher's kid, so it's been an important part of my journey to have that faith tradition represented, although the way in which they're represented in my psyche is very different post-ayahuasca, right? So anyway, I wanted to show you this first and foremost, just to encourage you to build something like this. This is sitting right here in my office, and it's just a little place for me to see. The way that I think about this is that these are all these are all sacred images that I believe are just like little fractal glimpses of the divine. And I see the planets as all little fractal glimpses of the divine as well. And so for me, I don't really put planetary deities per se on my altar, but I consider all of these different representations and images and symbols to be archetypal themselves and reflective of divinity. And so that's that. That's how I do my altar. If you haven't made one, make one. It's super fun. If you're not into it, no big deal. Now, what am I putting on my altar this week? I'm putting an apple. The apple that I put up there, there's many different things you're going to see me do on the altar, right? One of them is offering something through the lens of food, but you could offer water, you could offer incense, you could offer candles. I've got candles going right there. There's so many different ways of offering. And what do I see as the role of the apple this week? Very simple. Every day after I am finished working out, I typically have an apple in my gym bag and I eat it. And it's super sweet, and it kind of gives me a little bit of carbs, fills me up a little bit right away, replenishes me. What I'm doing this week is I'm offering an apple to the divine as a way of saying, every day when I replenish myself after working my body, please help me remember you. And please help me feel gratitude for the life and health in my body. Simple. Let this sweetness that I'm gifting all of you, giving to you as an offering, let this sweetness be a sweetness that goes beyond the taste of the apple itself and into something deeper every time I enjoy an apple this week. You see how simple that is? To me, having an altar practice doesn't have to be really, sort of, ostentatious, and it doesn't have to be like a big exaggerated thing. It can be really simple. You could put some flowers on your altar. You could light a candle. You could put a little basin, like a little cup of water. The point is that what you put there, if whatever you put on the altar is done thoughtfully and in a way that can help you stay connected in devotional remembrance to the things that are going to happen throughout your week somehow, then I think it's amazing. When I'm going through the transits this week, when I'm noticing and reflecting upon them, they'll probably have a way of weaving themselves into the symbol of an apple or the way that I experience them. I'm never trying to create something. I'm never trying to get something, at least in my practice with the altar. I'm just trying to say, help me stay connected. Help me receive the guidance that's always there. And so this week, a simple thing I can do is the apple, because every day I eat an apple. I'm such a creature of habit, and this will hopefully help me stay connected. Now, I promise you I won't be laboring this every week. Today, I'm sort of introducing you to my altar practice and what's on the altar for this week. But in subsequent weeks, what I'll do, typically the first day of the week, is I'll say, here's what's happening this week. Here's what's on my altar this week and why. I want you to use that if it's helpful to craft your own altar practice, put on it whatever you want, and find ways of making meaningful ritual in your life. Because in my mind, when we do that, there's a way in which all of the transits that happen start weaving themselves into our lives more consciously. And it's almost like, if you've ever had this happen, if you've ever said to yourself, I'm going to journal my dreams, and you keep a dream journal next to your bed, all of a sudden you start remembering more of your dreams. Why is that? Because you've done something intentional to bridge a gap between your waking and sleeping states by putting the journal next to your bed and having an intention to capture some of those dreams and reflect upon them. When we have an altar practice, in my mind, it's something very similar. You're just saying, look, I know there's this world where the gods are always speaking, where divinity is always speaking, and part of it is through these symbols I bring into my life. And so let me be just a little bit more conscious and intentional about that. All right, well, all suggestions, more on the group meetups for silence that we'll be hosting. I want to make sure I'm really thoughtful about when we're doing them and how regularly. So that's still sort of gestating, but I'm hoping that I'll be clear on that by the summer solstice and have an announcement, so that at some point this summer, if you're interested in just meeting up for a kind of meditative quiet time, that you'll have a place to do that. And that this channel can be a place for your spiritual practice and give you some tools for developing that are really easy and open to whoever you may be and whatever path you may be on. So, all right, on that note, we'll sign off for the day. After I am done here, remember, there's an informational video about the Year 1 program. So if you want to come study with us in June, we'd love to see you. All right, take it easy, everyone. Bye. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking around. I'm excited to tell you about our upcoming program, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic. It is our first-year course in Hellenistic astrology that begins at the end of June. June 22nd is our starting date. I'm going to take you over to the course page to tell you more about the program and what you will learn while you are in it. So here we go over to the Nightlight Astrology website. You can find this at nightlightastrology.com. Click on the courses tab, go to the first year course. Now, this program is ideal for people who maybe have a little bit of background already in astrology. Maybe you've done some studying on your own independently, taken some courses or webinars and workshops, but you're looking to deepen your understanding of astrology. And maybe Hellenistic astrology in particular has been calling to you. I'll tell you more about what Hellenistic astrology is in a minute, but on the first year course page, you're going to find everything that the course includes. I want to make the structure of the course clear first, and then at the end, I'm going to tell you 5 reasons that I think anyone might have for studying astrology, and you can see if you check any of those boxes. First of all, there are 30 classes on the year. It's just a little under a year-long program with 30 webinars. Every webinar is 2 to 3 hours long, including a lively Q&A and conversational section after we finished our lesson for the day. Each of those lessons I lead personally through live webinars, so you can attend those live. If you want to follow along at your own pace in your own time on your own schedule, you can always look at the recordings and take those in. And I'm going to show you what the class page looks like so you can see how you can interact with the course as uniquely and creatively as you want to. But you can either attend the live webinars or listen to the recordings or audio or video. In between major units of study within those 30 classes, we have separate classes outside of the 30 classes that are essentially tutoring sessions led by our staff, our course directors. We have 3 of them for our first year program, 3 tutors that help me guide every single class you're in and lead study sessions, and are also staffing an interactive group forum discussion where you can ask questions, look at charts, practice what you're learning with all of your classmates and with tutors there to help you. They'll always answer questions within a business day. So it's a really well-staffed, well-structured program. In between those major units of study and the breakout sessions, we also have guest speakers that come in throughout the year that you get free access to. The recordings are archived for you in your class folders. So you're getting people within our curriculum. You're also getting to visit with some astrologers who are outside of the Nightlight School, but we really admire their work, and so we bring them in. You also have a ton of bonus material. With every lesson, we have recommended quizzes, study guides, optional reading. And that allows people who are really, really, intense, deep, like studious types to go as far as you want to with the material, while other people who are maybe, content to take things in at, just kind of taking in the classes, that's there for you too. So you can kind of go as deeply as you want to. The class, if as the year goes on, goes through major units of study in ancient Hellenistic astrology. So if you're not familiar with ancient Hellenistic astrology, this is the earliest form of horoscopic astrology. This is where the astrology that you've probably learned today comes from originally. And that makes some of its features unique. Like, for example, ancient astrologers utilized whole sign houses. We study why they used whole sign houses, how they used them, and we study the why behind really everything: houses, signs, planets, aspects, dignities, essential and accidental dignities, delineation approaches. How do you read and predict within a natal chart? All of those theoretical areas of astrology, we not only learn how to do, but we learn the why behind it. And this is what I think people find most empowering about the course, is that ancient astrology really helps to give you the rationale for everything so that you have the insight available to go off script. What I mean by that is, like, let's say you're learning about a sign, Aries or Taurus or a Gemini, something like that. Ancient astrology won't just give you a list of the adjectives or keywords or descriptions of, say, a sign or a planet. It will give you an underlying philosophical explanation that then allows you to extrapolate from it the kinds of lists that you read in textbooks, which means you'll have an understanding of why everything on a list in a textbook is there in the first place. And you'll also have the insight and creativity available to add things to the list that are a part of your own unique intuition and contribution to astrology. And this is what ancient astrologers wanted students of astrology to learn: the why behind everything. So this is a class where, even though you're seeing things like planet signs, houses, dignities, aspects, and you're like, oh, I've already learned about those things. Not if you haven't studied Hellenistic astrology. I don't mean to sound condescending, but like, truly, most people's experience coming through this program is, wow, I had no idea all that I didn't know about the roots of everything that I've understood thus far about astrology. So it really is about digging into the philosophical core of why we do everything. And then you have greater intuitive and creative capacity as an astrological craftsman or craftswoman. So anyway, that's a brief explanation of why I think Hellenistic astrology is important. Not to mention that ancient astrology was really focused on our ability to accurately describe and predict things in the realm of karma, fate, and destiny, whereas modern astrology's hallmark and strength is psychological depth. And so when you put the two together in our program, which is why it's called Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic, I think you have something really special. So on that note, you can see everything that we cover here. So there's a video with some of our alumni you can watch. Everything is there on the page. Now, there are 5 reasons that I want to touch on briefly before I tell you about your payment options and need-based tuition. These are 5 reasons to study astrology that if you mark any of these boxes, especially if you mark several of them, then I think it's a good indication that you might be ideal for this program, might be an ideal fit. So the first one is, if you find that astrology has become a part of your daily, weekly, monthly, yearly spiritual practice, it is a part of how you lead an inner life, then there is nothing more empowering than deepening your connection to that language, because that puts you more in the driver's seat. It's always good to have astrologers that you rely on, teachers that you listen to, get a little objective perspective, especially when you're looking at your own chart through a reading. But there's really nothing more empowering than learning to speak the language at a deeper level for yourself. And if that calls to you, if you want to understand things and be able to speak more confidently and clearly about this sacred language that you love, and this is a great reason to take a structured program. Number two is that you feel called to read charts for people. And look, not everyone who takes our programs is on a professional track, but we have 4 years worth of professional training programs at Nightlight that will prepare you to read professionally for others if that's the path that you're on. Maybe you don't even know if you're on that path. That's fine too. Many people take our programs just for the sake of their own personal enrichment. And again, to be kind of more in the driver's seat with respect to your astrological journey. You have more of an understanding. You can be more confident in reading symbols and experiencing transits with your own understanding that you've cultivated. But sometimes people want to read for other people. This will definitely set you up to do that. We have a certification track where you can take exams at the end of every year. They're optional. You don't have to if you're not on that level of interest. Number three, you have done a lot of self-study. You've heard things from here and there, but you're looking to bring it all together. It is overwhelming to study astrology on your own. So if you want organization, structure, and coherence, what you're getting in this program is going on 15 years of training astrologers, 15 years of developing curriculum that has in mind the overwhelm that many people experience. And this program is structured year 1, year 2, year 3, however far you want to go with our curriculum, to give you an organized, structured, coherent way of understanding the history and language of astrology from both ancient times to modern times in all of the vastness that the field includes. And also, as we go, we want to give you the confidence that you are a part now of an astrological lineage. Astrology has always been practitioner-based. Coming through Nightlight, you are going to have the opportunity to feel aligned with a lineage. If you like my work, if you feel aligned with the way I speak the language, then this might be a good reason to come study with us. Now, if you're seeking the why behind things, if you're like, yeah, that's interesting, I get it, I understand, but why? Why signs? What's the difference between a sign and a house? Why do they ever come up with a sign and a house? What's the distinction philosophically? Why does Mars represent this? Why does Mars in this sign represent that? If you are someone who feels empowered by understanding the why behind things, you are going to love this program, because that's how I am as a teacher. That's how I am as a person. And that's what this program is really all about. Number 5, you are looking for astrological community. Look, I think Nightlight is unique in terms of the kind of warmth, acceptance, safety, and inclusiveness that our community includes intellectually, spiritually. We are really pride ourselves on being a peaceful kind of family. I'm a Cancer, right? So it's kind of a family-oriented environment. So anyway, I will end it there. If you check any of those boxes, you may want to consider studying with us. Now, I'm going to take you over to 2 things. I want to show you the dashboard. So here is the Thinkific page. You're going to join this. And on your dashboard, you're going to find any courses that you've enrolled in at Nightlight. And there are many, so you may end up in being involved in multiple courses. And you'll find that they're all there on your dashboard. Click on one of them, and it will take you in. You're going to find that on the left-hand side, there's orientation instructions, course information, class links, and calendar, all the technical stuff you need to know when you join the course. And then you're going to find that when you go through the lessons, that the lesson includes the video, the audio, the slides, the transcripts, the Q&A box text if you couldn't make it live and see what people were talking about, flashcards, homework, a bonus PDF with all sorts of additional recommended reading, bonus videos, additional video links for bonus material. So every single time that you want to visit something within the course, everything is nicely organized. So you can see here, I'm going to pause this before it starts going, but you can embed the video right there. It's embedded and you can watch it. And then if you wanted to, you could also, right here, you could also download the video and watch it on your own device. And that's same for the audio as well. And then as you go, you'll see all of the lessons are laid out. The study sessions are also recorded if you can't make those live. So everything is nicely arranged on the website for you. And that makes it a course that if you wanted to take 3 years to accomplish, you could take 3 years to accomplish. If you want to take it for the sake of getting certified, you have the full year plus an additional year to take the exam. So, 2 years total that we give people if you're on a professional track. But most people complete the program in a year. And a lot of people, over 50% of our students, go on to our year 2 and then our year 3 and horary programs as well. Now, final thing I'm going to show you is right here. You're going to find here is the enrollment options at the bottom of the first year course page. Again, this is at nightlightastrology.com, and you're going to click on the first year course, go to the bottom. The early bird payment saves you several $100s off the cost of the course. That's available till May 15th. Early bird installment plan saves you on the installment plan, regular cost of the course. That's also only available until May 15th. And then need-based tuition. All of our programs include a need-based option where we give you a sliding scale and we say you pick your monthly tuition number within this sliding scale, which is greatly reduced off the normal tuition price. That is for people who are on a fixed or limited income, receiving disabilities, single mom, whatever the case might be. We want to make sure that nobody's priced out of studying astrology. So you don't have to feel any shame. If that is you, if you need help, if you want to take this, but you need to make it work within a tight budget, we get it. Times are tough right now. We don't think people should be priced out of studying a sacred subject like astrology. So we've been offering need-based pricing for 15 years. Nightlight is a donation-based school. It started that way. We have a sliding scale, so it's kind of like donation. You get to choose your rate anyhow. So if that's something that will help you, please use it. Thank you for listening to this. I hope it gave you a really deep and comprehensive introduction to what the course is all about and why you might find it exciting to come study with us starting at the end of June. So any questions you have about the program as you're visiting the course, email us, info@nightlightastrology.com. We'll be glad to talk about anything that you have questions about. We are here and we have a wonderful staff of people at Nightlight who will be a part of your learning experience and are all glad to help you. All right, that's it. We'll see you again later. Bye.